the Jerry Lewis Show with Lou Brown and the band, and Jerry's special guests, William Shatner and Norm Crosby.
Guess what? Corey Haim and Corey Feldman are giving out their personal numbers. If you call 1-900-909-3700, you can listen to their private phone messages and get their personal number where you can leave them a message of your own. $2 the first minute, 45 cents each additional minute. Ask your parents before you call. 1-900-909-3700.
If you call me right now, I'll give you my private number.
You call that number, and you'll hear a recording, and I'll give you my personal number if you call that. And we'll wrap.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thomas. We do appreciate you. Phil McCracken. Phil McCracken. Souk Mahidic. Luke Mahidic. Ophelia McHawk. Ophelia McHawk. Eileen Dover. Eileen Dover. Don Kiddick. Don Kiddick.
This first one comes from Michael, who says, my wife has become a real problem. She has no respect for me as the head of the house. She insults me. She even went as far as stretching her hand to beat me. I've lost my self-confidence. Her words hurt so much, and she refuses to talk through our problems. Please tell me what I can do.
Well, you could become a Muslim, then you could beat her.
But in lieu of that...
You don't want to go to Saudi Arabia?
No.
I think this man's got to stand up to her, and he can't let her get away with this stuff. And, I don't know. I don't think we condone wife beating these days, but something's got to be done to make her...
Physically.
One thing is for sure, Satan sells. No matter how you slice it, it's not the heavy metal bands like Black Sabbath and Kiss that are losing money in the current record industry depression. In fact, some new groups seem to be picking up that satanic smell of success. Is this a ridiculous notion, or is Satan rampant in rock? To some, the answer is obvious.
Okay, now it looks like this one goes to Grand Island, and this one cuts up to the highway.
Where's this Gatlin we've been seeing signs for?
It's not on here.
I mean, it's not on here. It's gotta be on here somewhere.
Fred, look out!
Texas.
Oh.
What do you want to begin with that one?
Ay.
The great state of Texas.
It can be.
I have to admit, just to preface this, I have to admit that I did not know, I'm not saying that I'm taking credit for anything, but I did not know that Governor Greg Abbott is in fact in a wheelchair.
Oh, yes.
Wheelchair bound. How do we say that? What's the nice way to say that? He's differently...
Wheelchair bound.
I wish I was wheelchair bound.
I don't know why. I would say is in a wheelchair.
Of different standing ability? I don't know.
No.
Anyway, I just learned that. I did not know that.
Really?
So, seriously, I did not know that. I've seen his ugly mug a million times, but I don't watch television news. Every photo, no photos of him have shown that he's in a wheelchair. I guess that's intentional. Yeah. So, I mean, it's neither here nor there.
No,
he's still a dick.
Yeah. He's always sitting down signing bad legislation. Or when he's behind a podium, it's set for him. Mm-hmm. And they usually stay at a certain level, as they do, I think, I'm thinking most people. Yeah. Do you know why?
Oh, how he became?
Yeah.
No, I don't, actually. I don't.
Me
Was
either.
it a war situation? What I mean is, was he evading?
He was on the wrong side on the war on stupidity. Let's see what we can hold on. Hang tight, little sprite.
Yeah, that we have to know.
Why is Greg Abbott in a wheelchair? And if it says because he can't walk, I'm going to get really upset.
Can you ask for me, why is Greg Abbott a dick?
Oh, on July 14th, 1984, at age 26, Abbott was paralyzed below the waist when an oak tree fell on him while he was jogging following a storm.
Oh,
he had 2 steel rods implanted in his spine, underwent extensive rehabilitation at TIRR Memorial Hermann in Houston and has used a wheelchair ever since.
Huh.
An oak
So,
tree
yeah. Did oak tree while he was
fell on
jogging?
him while he was jogging following a storm.
Right. And you don't take that as a sign, Greg? Really?
No. Hey, but I got to give some credit to his wife. They got married in 1981, and she apparently has stayed loyal.
Huh. In loyal servitude.
That could be it. Oh,
Greg,
there's no term limit on the governor in Texas.
for what it's worth, his approval ratings or his poll numbers have been dropping because of this abortion ban, which has just gone into effect. And we talked about this a few
That
episodes
silly
back.
Constitution.
Oh,
silly
that the whole thing?
Constitution getting in the way.
Yeah. So now, for anybody who hasn't been following, basically Texas has made abortion illegal in all practical sense because the law is this 6-week law. So
More or less, once they can
pregnancy.
detect a fetal heartbeat, which tends to be around 6 weeks, which they say most women don't even realize that they're pregnant by that time. But the interesting thing is they made it to go around the law in that there aren't formal charges against the woman doesn't get charged. And then where is the guy
Right.
in all of this? I mean, they don't tend to get pregnant by themselves, but vigilantes can go, and so it could be the doctor, anyone else in that organization helps. It could be whoever drives them, including Uber or whomever. But did you hear that Uber has said that they will pay? Oh, and they can get up to $10,000 or $10,000 plus for turning someone in.
right.
And they don't have to have any connection, any association with the person. So
Well, I think to
woman-
collect the $10,000, there would have to be a conviction, but
Yeah.
you don't have to have any proof or any evidence of anything. Actually, you can say, I think this happened, and that's plenty.
Yeah.
And you can't. There's no bad faith in the lawsuits, so even if you do that on purpose, if it's a frivolous suit, you won't have to pay court costs.
No, whoever you're suing does.
Right. So that's the law is designed basically to put abortion providers, women's health clinics out of business, and it's already they've all shut down because it's too risky to do it, because it could be each person who files a $10,000 lawsuit, 100 of those people, there's no way you can fight that if you're anybody. No, but there's unless you're Disney, you couldn't fight that. So that's how the law is designed to.
Uber said that they would pay the fees for their drivers,
Okay.
which is pretty cool for a company to stand up and say, you know what, we'll handle it because this is BS. But then tonight on the news, they showed a bunch of companies that have contributed to Governor Abbott, and a bunch of them gave him money on that day.
Aha.
And I'm afraid to start listing because there were 10 large companies that gave large amounts of money. And I think anyone who believes, and one of the things that somebody had said, a woman who really is, she said more like she's pro-life, but she said one thing to keep in mind is that no one is pro-abortion. Nobody's pro-abortion,
No.
but there is pro-choice. There are situations. And one of the things when I was studying human trafficking before, and these young girls get raped, just because your body would allow you to get pregnant doesn't mean that your body is physically ready to carry a child.
Right.
So a lot of these young girls would die in childbirth. And again, this idea that if you are raped, or if it's incest, odds are it's a rape anyway, and your relative, and here's this person in this home, seeing this person or hearing their name, forced to carry this child, then are there genetic implications? And if it's the girl's father, so what then all of a sudden it's her son and half-brother? How do you explain that to a child growing up?
I mean, to me, it doesn't get any more complicated than it's a woman's choice what she does with her body, period. It doesn't need to even expand beyond that into philosophical questions of when life begins, or when a human is a human and not a zygote, and all those things. It's rock, paper, scissors, and that the person's body trumps everything else. And the goal should obviously be to make abortions very rare. That's not what these laws are about. These laws are to punish women for having sex. That's completely what they're about. I think 10 other states have already got laws working their way through, and they'll be signed because they have Republican, they're firmly in the red. So, so they'll definitely be signed. Texas is taking one for the team, taking one for the crazies, and then they're all going to follow suit. And I don't know.
It's interesting because then again, Biden today with his 6-point plan for, we're not going to eliminate COVID, but to decrease it to a point that we can get back to some form of normalcy, and saying federal government employees, it's now time. Vaccinations. Companies with 100 or more employees, it's vaccination time. One reporter who has worked in finance and business has spoken to a lot of companies who have come back and said how happy they are for this because now they have cover to do so. That some of them have been trying to do that, but they've had employees be like, okay, fine, you try and force me to get a vaccine. I'll just go down the street and work for this company. Well, that option will be now taken off the table.
Mm-hmm. Going to be some nice jobs with nice benefits opening up.
And they're already screaming, no, my body, my choice. And a whole bunch of states had already started their little tizzy. You can all guess what letter is behind their name. And the good old state of Nebraska is already on there with crickets.
Certainly. Well, here was one of the supreme ironies of all this is that the day that this law went into effect in Texas, there was a rally. There was a protest. Thousands of people. And it was an anti-vaccination rally. And they were actually chanting, our bodies, our choice. I swear. With not a hint of irony to it whatsoever. Yeah.
They see that they are protecting this fetus, this unborn child. But then again, as people say, as soon as this baby is born, they wash their hands.
Oh, sure.
They're taking as much money as they can away from the education system. Any program that's like a Head Start, they want to get rid of, deplete the resources. Let's not worry about minimum wage so that people can make a decent living to support these children. Let's not provide health care in any way because we don't pay enough that these people can actually afford health care. So let's get rid of anything that can help these children. And then my big question is all these people who are pushing so hard, how many children have they adopted?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they wouldn't even.
How many of these young girls, how many of the young guys really stick around? When the girl decides to keep the baby, how many of the guys stick around for life? Yeah. Pause on that one. How many of these families are helping these young girls? Do they say, I tell you what, I don't work during the day. I can help babysit, or in the evening when you need to study, pop over here. We'll watch your child for you so that you can get some studying done. Or I understand you need to have a job for that $7.25 or $9 an hour. So instead of having to pay childcare that's going to take half of that, if not more, I will come to where you are, or you come over here, bring your child here. Oh, wait, you have to ride the bus because you don't have a car. Okay, I get that. So now we have another problem, but let us help you out with childcare so that you can study, go to work, do whatever it is you need to do so that you can graduate from high school or college or those college courses that you're taking so that you can try and move up in the job market. Nope, not there to my knowledge.
It isn't a thought through issue for them. It's this knee-jerk, it's like being anti-abortion or being pro-life, whatever they want to call themselves. It's like the fetus is such a perfect non-entity that you can fixate on that can't really, they don't have a voice, so they're not going to say anything. They don't really even, they exist, but they exist in this sort of nether world, and you can project whatever you want to on them, but it isn't about the baby. It clearly isn't about the baby because, it's, as you said, the second they're out in the real world, it's forget about you. They don't want to fund any postnatal.
Are they helping to fund prenatal. No, again, that goes back
not.
to
Right.
the insurance. And I get, again, nobody is pro-abortion. Nobody is for this. But, and we'll go back to, does this then also mean the health of the mother? And we talked about this. If it's an ectopic pregnancy, which will kill the mother and will kill to whatever form it has grown to at this point, both will die, period. If you know that the baby is going to be stillborn, it won't live past a week. That's a terrible decision. And there have been articles written by women and men that they together made the decision. Because at that point, these were families. And the men didn't want to put all of that weight on the woman either. She would have had to have physically gone through it. And you hear stories, you hear interviews with these women, and you read these articles. They don't walk into this lightly.
No, of course not. It's the most painful decision I'm sure any woman has to make. It's a painful decision. Again, it's nobody's business but that individual. Really. Under this law, under this Texas law, here's a scenario. A father could rape his daughter, his underage daughter, get her pregnant, take her across town on a bus to an abortion provider, get said abortion. He could sue the bus driver. He could sue somebody that they stopped to ask for directions to the provider once they got off the bus. There's $20,000 right there. Yeah.
If he took her there, then he can get sued as well.
Or she could turn around and sue him. She can't be sued, though.
No.
And actually, if we hear the story, then we could sue, too, because you don't even have to be in Texas. It's like, oh, I heard this happen. Actually, they had set up a website for anonymous tips, which was it was glorious. I mean, you know these things, they never end well. You don't set up a website for this. And the beauty was at the beginning, I actually went on there and looked at this. It was kind of hard to get through because it was crashing, but it was like 7 questions. And it was like, what did you see? Where did you see it? Etc. One of them was, are you currently an elected official? Of 7 questions, one of them was that one, which was a very strange question to have up there. But they also left it open. You could attach files so that you could, evidence, I guess, like photographs. This is what they were looking for.
Wow.
Well, unfortunately, what they got was a lot of Shrek porn, which
I heard of that as classic.
I didn't even know what Shrek. Well, obviously, I know what Shrek porn is now, but it didn't occur to me that there was such a thing. But there is such a thing, and there's a lot of it. And
I
now
still don't know what it is.
Well, you can guess Shrek porn.
Yes.
I mean, you can guess. So I haven't seen any of it myself, but I'm guessing all the possibilities. But yeah, they shut the website down like 2 days. Just it got clogged up. Yeah.
I understand the governor's name was in quite a few of those reports as well.
Yeah, well, see, I'm sure a lot of people were doing that, or Ted Cruz or whatever. But I'll bet they put filters in right off the bat that would just throw that stuff out because they, that kind of thing they expect. Oh, there's going to be a little bit of horseplay. There's going to be people putting the governor's name in and whatnot. As long as you put in like a real name or a real sounding name and a real sounding place in Texas and a vague enough story, they're supposed to have to check it out and waste resources on that. So that was the idea, was to shut them down that way, not just to shut the website down, but to just clog their system up and say, oh, really? So you want anonymous tips? Okay, here you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I shall give them to you.
Coming to the rescue, it appears, and I don't know that we should be surprised, but a lot of people are, is the Satanic Temple. Do you know about the Satanic Temple? Not to be confused with the Church of Satan, which is, they're a bunch of dicks. That's Anton LaVey, the guy that's on the Hotel California album, the bald guy. The Satanic Temple are these guys who, it's a real organization, and they have legitimate tax-exempt status because they're considered a religion. They don't deify Satan. Okay, they don't even believe in Satan as a real being. They believe in Satan as a fictional character. Now, they're the people who are like basically on the forefront of protecting religious freedom in this country. You remember, I don't know, a few years ago there was a story in, I think it was in Oklahoma, where they put up, well, several states actually, they put up these Ten Commandments statues on government property, which is a no-no. Separation of church and state is what we have in the Constitution, and everybody knows that. But some states are just like, who cares? And so they put this up. Now, instead of petitioning or making a big uproar and saying this has to come down, what they did was say, oh, that's great. We're for religious freedom too. Since you're putting up yours, that means you have to, since you're putting up one for Christianity, that means you have to put up statues of other religions. So here's ours. And theirs happened to be a goat-headed guy sitting on a throne with children. It was tasteful, but it upset people.
Yes. Or they took the Ten Commandments down, or they took it all down.
They took both down, and so no statues. And they've done this in a few states now. I think they've done it in a couple states, Alabama and Oklahoma. But what they did with Texas, that is just genius, is they saw this coming. I mean, these guys it is a real religion in that it meets the criteria that you have to have, and they have deeply held beliefs. The Satan part of it is not. Anyway, what they did in Texas is they've seen this coming, the whole anti-abortion movement. So a couple of years ago, they incorporated abortion as a sacred ritual in their religion. Now, that is allegedly protected because it's a ritual. And so, so basically, I mean, it's obviously going to be tested in the courts, but if a woman wanted to get an abortion against this new law, in theory, she could join the Satanic Temple. And again, not the Church of Satan. Forget about those guys. Those guys are into like hedonism and like they're a little more what people think of as satanic, actually. Although they don't worship Satan either. They have really weird ritual. Anyway, the Satanic Temple is mostly a political group. I would put it that way. They're basically on the front lines of a lot of this really important stuff. And yeah, so they're sort of the unlikely heroes.
So in Texas, what have they got? What are they actually doing?
What are they doing right now? Well, as I said, they have incorporated abortion as a ritual. So they've already filed lawsuits against Abbott for infringing upon their rights. Now, I understand it's difficult to get past the satanic part. It's difficult for a lot of people. It's difficult for most people. If you didn't know that was the name, if you thought, if you heard of this other group called Americans for Humanity or something, and you read these tenets, I personally am pretty on board with these tenets. Number one is one should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason. That's number one. These are sort of their version of the Ten Commandments. There's 7 actually, fundamental tenets. 2 is the struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. I agree with that. The struggle for justice.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 is one's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. I guess that's where abortion would come into play. I actually agree with that too. Number 4 is the freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forego one's own. Okay, I agree with that. 5 is beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's beliefs. There you go. I'm pro-science.
That's not going everywhere these days.
Well, yeah, I know a few people who... Number 6 is people are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. I got no problem against that one either.
No.
And finally, number 7 is every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word. I don't disagree with a word of that.
Wow.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's kind of what I would call that humanism. Yes. The Church of Satan, those guys are more like don't go out of your way to hurt people, but some people deserve it, that kind of thing. So that's a whole different thing, whole different trip. But Yeah, so there's a very good documentary. When I first heard about these guys, I checked this out. It's from like 2 or 3 years ago, called Hail Satan with a question mark. And it's about their movement, and it's very interesting.
Oh.
Yeah. And it turns out these monuments, these statues, the Ten Commandment statues that's just sort of started popping up in various states in the South, they were part of a marketing campaign for the movie. You remember the Cecil B. DeMille movie from the 50s? Yeah. He bought them with the hope that they would put them up, and in states all around the country and to promote his movie. And they didn't until a little bit later, and then they got in trouble because you're not supposed to do that. But yeah, that's where they actually. And Charlton Heston was out, out. There's footage in the documentary of Charlton Heston doing a ceremony of like an unveiling of one of these. It's crazy.
Wow. Well, they have a thing in our capital where each holiday season there were X number of spaces that people could put up displays, and it would tend to be religious, and then atheist groups tried to get a space. They're like, nope, they're all full for this year. And so the next year, the day you could get them, boom, and they went, which of course caused all kinds of trouble. So I don't even know if they're doing it anymore.
Wow.
But that fight went on for a few years.
What kind of things were on the display? I'm sure nothing offensive, right? Just like, I mean, somebody can find anything offensive, but I'm sure there was nothing overtly offensive.
I didn't go see them. I stayed out of that one. I didn't see Just Cause to really get involved. I thought it was a little silly, seeing as it should be separation. So I thought, let the people who are truly involved in this one fight that battle. I'm not going to pick up my sword for everything.
Well, speaking of statues and swords, the
last
Confederate statue was taken down. Robert E. Lee.
And did you hear what the big orange monster said?
I did. It was, yes, go ahead.
If it hadn't been for Gettysburg, he would have won. Oh, goody. Slavery could have been saved. Considering he was not a general.
Well, that is what they want. I mean, he's just not saying the quiet part quiet.
The silly thing is, if you're trying to say, yes, he has, I've done more for blacks than any other president or than anyone else, and then you continue to scream, yell, blast about how all of these Confederate monuments should be kept up. They were great Americans, great patriots, which no, they weren't, and no, they weren't. What do you not get what you're saying? Or you do because you are absolutely peddling to the basest of your base. But think about it. Ugh.
Well, you're forgetting, though, that he's actually genuinely racist, too. I mean, there's pandering, yes, but he genuinely believes that. He feels that way.
Oh,
his dad was in the KKK. They were sued in New York in the 70s for prospective housing clients. If they were of color, they wrote a big N on the paper, on the application, to show
no room at the inn.
No, I think it was closer to N-word.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's what it stood for. And and then they went to court and they lost. That's verified. That's not anyone's opinion. That's on the record. So yeah, I mean, he's racist. And now that he's probably half demented, any filters that he had running through that brain aren't running at all now. So it's just it's coming out of every end. Didn't he say something today too about that? Oh,
the 15 million uncounted votes?
No, about Robert E. Lee. Something. I thought I read a different quote about Robert E. Lee. We could use him now or something.
Oh, Lordy.
He's the greatest. Yeah, he's.
Yes, he did.
He's a hero. Okay, here we go. NBC News.
While you're looking for that, I will tell you, about the 15 million uncounted votes. Now, where they found them, I don't know. But, yes, please help back him up. And then 2 minutes later, another thing about how, of course, it asked for donations, but he was going to be in Iowa for a rally and send as much money as you can. It's like, Crime Manila, do y'all not get that he's living off your money because he doesn't have any?
They don't get that. No. He's a billionaire. I'd be glad to give my money to him. He's a billionaire. Yeah. All right, I found the Trump quote about this. This is better than I thought. He called the removal of the statue a symbol of cultural destruction by the radical left, of course. And he said that it has long been recognized as except for Gettysburg, he would have won the war, as you said. He should be remembered. This is a direct quote from former President Hold for Vomit. He should be remembered as perhaps the greatest unifying force after the war was over. He's talking about Robert E. Lee. Unifying force. Ardent in his resolve to bring the North and South together through many means of reconciliation and imploring his soldiers to do their duty in becoming good citizens of this country. Oh, yeah, okay, here's what I remember. If only we had Robert E. Lee to command our troops in Afghanistan, that disaster would have ended in a complete and total victory many years ago. What an embarrassment we are suffering because we don't have the genius of a Robert E. Lee, Trump concluded. Now, I'm going to point out
the guy
for the people who aren't aware of this, he actually lost the one war that he participated in. Yes. 0-1.
So the loser of the election is touting the brilliance of another person who lost. Miserably.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, as long as we're all on the same page with this one.
You mean the man who swore that he would have stormed into a school shooting unarmed to stop the shooters. He actually said that. He would do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's no excuse for anybody because he would do that.
Of course. And then
That's
he'll
how
meet
you
you
get
down at the
things
Capitol
done.
also. So y'all get down there, okay? Get down to that Capitol because he's going to meet you there.
Well, yes.
That same one.
Did you see the video of the woman in Lincoln, Nebraska, in a Super Saver,
Coughing.
coughing on people? She was not wearing a mask, and she wasn't even. I don't think she was even told. She was just basically being. Well, they call them Karens, but I think that's a misuse of the term. Frankly, I think Karen. I know people named Karen are pissed off because we named this awful breed of person a Karen, but now they know how dick feels.
Yeah. They're
Right?
basically belligerent
So, but-
pigs is what they are.
Yeah, but I think of them more like in a retail, like a let me talk to your manager. Whereas this is viciously she's coughing on people and trying to upset them.
Following a mother and daughter pair around the store.
Yeah. Well, the good news is she was fired from her job today because the internet is forever. The internet's
Yes, it is.
justice is swift. Yeah,
Did it say where she worked? Did it give her
something
name?
something called SAP. Yeah, I don't know what her name is, but it's out there. Something called SAP. I don't know what that is.
I don't either.
Yeah, that was her employer, and they
Go them.
They issued an apology. Like, yeah, we take these things very seriously. Blah blah blah, and yeah, she's terminated. Bye bye. Sorry, but of course she's not going to learn anything from it. You know, she's the victim here, clearly.
Of course.
In her mind, and like the another video yesterday, I think it came out too, was the guy on the beach who decided he had to go up to these girls who were wearing bikinis. It's a beach, so we were allowed to do, and then lecture on them how they were being immodest and worse than that, right?
Oh my.
So the video went viral, and then he doubles down by putting another video out saying that he was filled with righteous anger and all this stuff, and guess who else lost his job today? Yeah.
The idiot stick?
He was working for a Christian construction company, which I did not know there was such a thing but there apparently is. And yeah, he was working for a Christian construction company, and they issued an apology. And
so he thinks that somehow walking up and down a beach and attempting to shame people on a beach is going to work out for him in any way, shape, or form?
My understanding is there's something in the Bible about if your eye offends you, pluck it out, right? If he's having trouble looking at these girls, nobody else is having a problem with it at all. If he has a problem looking at their exposed flesh and it's stirring up some primordial feelings in him, it's his struggle. It's not their struggle. They're not doing anything. Yeah.
Maybe they were getting all kinds of tan to get on Naked and Afraid. That should make him happy.
Maybe. We call them Kevins, right? The male Karens. Is that?
I'm okay with that.
I think it's Kevin.
I've not heard that, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I had to take a moment and think if there were any Kevins in my family that could be hurt, but we're good.
Tough luck. I'm sorry.
We're over it. Are you going to pop down, do a little reconnaissance for the September 18th rally to D.C.? You could be
No.
You could be the dude on the ground.
Oh, no.
Well, they're reinstalling the fence.
I'm looking forward to seeing it unfold live, and I hope everyone's safe. But the good thing is it's on a Saturday, right? So most Congress people won't even be there.
Well, and as it turns out, Boebert's busy that day, so she can't be there. Margie's busy or something. She can't be there.
Busy on a committee? No, I don't think so.
No. Little Jimmy Jordan, a reporter asked me, the 18th? Oh, is there a rally? I don't know. Acted like he didn't know anything about it, just sounded as foolish as usual.
I might have spoken to the president about that. I don't know. Maybe it was before, during, after. I'm not really sure.
President, the loser.
Oh, no. They do not refer to him as the former president. He's the president.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cult.
But it doesn't seem, thus far, the names that were mentioned, that any of those folks who have gone out defending this whole January, they were just tourists. At this point, I don't know if any of them are going to be there. And the guy who used to work on the Orange Guys campaign got the permit, but he's thinking about 700 people. But there are people threatening on the dark web places, threatening violence, of course. Here's what they're saying is, on one site, some guy's going to carry his AR-15, even though he's not legally allowed to do so.
Okay.
But while all of law enforcement and such are down at the Capitol trying to make sure this stays, they're going to go off and commit violent acts against mosques and other religious sites.
Oh, interesting.
And they put it out there. So we know.
Are they afraid that they're not getting enough comparisons to the Taliban already?
You think. Gee, Christmas. And Kevin McCarthy's still whining about all the telecom agencies, businesses that have been, because today's
he threatened them. He out and out threatened.
You won't be allowed to do business in the United States any longer if you turn over that information, which guess what, Kev? A Kevin! How apropos.
He is a Kevin.
Do you think
what
that's
can he
where,
do?
maybe that's where it came from? Nothing.
Could be. Yeah.
But his name is on the list. Now, again, keeping in mind, did he say anything last year when the orange one was trying to get all of Adam Schiff's, and now why can't I can't think of his name, from California. Ran for president for a couple minutes. Eric Swalwell.
Okay.
The orange one wanted all of their records because they were in on trying to get him impeached as he should have been. You didn't hear anything from Kev or the other kids about that's a no-no. Don't you dare turn those things over. No! They sat back quietly, probably just drooling, waiting to get their hands on anything. I just can't wait for all these fools to go down. And then they better be kicked out and not allowed to run for any government office ever again. No lobbyist firm should pick them up. They should just be, I don't know, hang out in some grunge bar with that little murderer, whoever all those people think is a hero.
Kyle Rittenhouse, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he's allowed in bars. I think, didn't he get in trouble and sent back? The Q Shaman got it. No, I'm sorry. Remember Q Shaman, the guy with the with the Thor costume?
Ugh.
He.
Don't you dare say it. No, he
well,
had.
I'm not saying he's not Hemsworth Thor.
No, he had some thing with horns on it. He was nothing Thorish.
She's so defensive about her.
Well, no, but that
anything within 500 yards of Chris Hemsworth. Jeez.
Plus, it looked like a pawn. The little chest piece of pawn tattooed on his belly. That says it all, doesn't it?
He looked like actually Moondog. Moondog was this guy who dressed that way. He was a street performer in New York City in, I think, the 60s and 70s and 80s. I didn't actually see him on the street. I think he might have moved before I got here in 87. Anyway, he was an eccentric street performer, and he was quite a genius, as it turns out. He recorded a few albums of music, and it's really good. It's like modern classical music. But he dressed as a Viking like that, with the woolly, top and the Viking helmet and stuff. I think that's what I think of Moondog when I see the Q shaman guy. He was sentenced, I guess, or he's about to be sentenced. He pled guilty, but he gave this impassioned speech on video that basically is like, "You broke my heart, Trump." His defense is that he was in love with Trump. He really was.
Hold on, I need a tissue.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure he did too. Yeah, but then the other guy. Do you remember the guy, the really, really awful, scary looking guy that was coming up the stairs towards Officer Goodman, who was leading the pack? If you can remember, that guy's face is in my nightmares. Just a slack jawed. Yeah. Just white trash. Just like all emotion. He checked out at the door, and he just must kill or must rape or whatever he was thinking. Anyway, he was inexplicably let out on bail, and he violated his bail, got thrown back in the hoosgow for he was not to go on the internet. And they caught him in his garage on his cell phone watching the live stream of Mike Lindell's Wacko conference. I swear. And so he got thrown back in jail because he couldn't.
Oh, jeez. Because you can't miss the pillow, dude.
Oh. And after his lawyer had argued that he that he used to believe in this theory, and he doesn't believe in this anymore. He's fine, blah blah blah. And naturally,
he has seen the light. Yeah. He has found his way. Did you hear about the guy who is upset because he's out, but he has the ankle bracelet thing?
Right.
But it's chafing.
Oh no!
Or and he can't get clean. Mm-hmm. That's one of his big things.
Well, I guess they got to try everything they can try, right?
There's some guy who wants to get put back in Gen Pop. Well, they have their Patriot wing, Patriot something. It's like you couldn't be any farther. Heaven forbid.
They'll be okay. There's plenty of white supremacists in prison. They'll be fine.
How long can you be that stupid? It's like anything else now. The Manson people, some of them will go to their grave thinking that he was something. Most of them have figured it out. How many years later? The Jones people, they either died or escaped, but a lot of them didn't know. Apparently they didn't know they were being poisoned, a lot of them. The ones, there were 13 of them that they found. The guy with the really crazy eyes in a house, and they killed each other in 4 shifts. Somewhere along the line, you've got to figure out that stuff isn't real. When you're told X number of times, Armageddon's going to happen on this day, and it doesn't. Oh, well, that's because there was this little glitch. No, okay, it's going to happen this time, and it doesn't. There's Pizzagate, all this stuff's going on, and then it turns out they discovered, no, there wasn't anything. And this other thing is going on, and somebody looks into it, and no, that's not true either. How many things have to be proven? And even, again, just by a date passing, where nothing happens that was predicted to happen, before you just kind of start to think, oh, okay, maybe there isn't anything to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a doomsday cult. Doomsday cults have been around for thousands of years, and, they'll set a date for the end of the world, and then when that date passes, some people are like, oh, this is all bullshit, and they leave, but the people who don't, they're all in, Once they say, oh, you know what? I forgot to carry the one, and so it's actually this other date. A few years. They kick the can down the road a little bit, and the people who believe it, they're completely all in. So, once you got them that far, you can really. A lot of these people who are attracted to cults are so desperate anyway that once they find this community that they think or feel like has their back, then they're all in. There's no talking them out of it. Nothing's too kooky. They're all in.
So when I was sitting there this weekend with my sister and another friend, and we were talking about some of the serious stuff, my sister and I went to pick up the food, and of course I put my mask. There's a mask mandate in the city in which I live, and I'm
Okay.
all for the Delta variant.
What's the mask mandate in restaurants, in bars?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
in stores as well, or no?
Yes, anything indoor. 14% of the cases right now are school-aged children. She does not reside in the same area I do. When I went inside any place, I put on my mask. Guy at the convenience store, I went in to pick up a couple sodas. I need caffeine to drive. So, I think they should be everywhere. Went into the place to pick up our food. I'm just going to say it this time. There were a whole bunch of bikes, motorcycles parked outside.
Okay.
I was putting on my mask, and I knew it was going to be a thing. Sure enough, we're standing at the counter. I see a little bobblehead doll of a particular individual, orange hair and all.
Oh, no.
The fake $1 million bill, all this other crap, and it's like, oh, shit. But I see this whole span of them over on the side. Of course, you're eating, you can't wear a mask when you're eating. But I just glanced over a couple times, and I saw them all looking at me, just talking. Oh, and it got to be a thing. Oh, yeah, people were completely turning around, and I thought, whatever. If that's your thing, you want to be that silly, go ahead. But we had conversations. There were a few of us that had conversations about politics on that, social issues, and consciousness anymore. The idea that you don't know what you don't know until you know it, that whole thing about how people being ragged on, and it got to even The Bachelor, how Matt James or something was his name, and he had ended up with a gal named Rachel, who they're back together now. She's from the South. She had gone to an antebellum party 2 or 3 years before they met. In the South, they don't know. A lot of the education in the book, Civil War, and we all know what it's about, but this is the war of northern aggression.
Yep.
So one of the friends I was talking with, mentioned even Lady Antebellum, changed her name just now to Lady A, which we used to say anyway. She said, I didn't even know that antebellum was a bad thing, was a bad word. She's from the Midwest. It had never been taught, never discussed.
Now you do.
Yes, but it's that whole idea, again, go back to you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Right.
So sometimes it's the idea of taking that moment. If you are the person who knows, instead of being angry and shunning that person, take that as a teaching moment. You know what antebellum is. You know why it's bad. This person doesn't. Don't shun them. Take a moment out of kindness, love, care, concern, and teach. Mm-hmm. Share what it is. And we talked more about that on broader topics in the same vein. But that's one of the things that's so frustrating. You and I have talked before about folks in cultural appropriation and these different things. And I've said I'm Irish. If y'all want to be silly and wear green on St. Patrick's Day, I wish you wouldn't get so sticking drunk, because that isn't what we're about. But I'm not going to get angry with you. But I have friends of other ethnicities that get frustrated, and, then we go back to Cinco de Mayo, where somebody might wear a sombrero, and I've got friends who have gotten so upset saying that this is an insult to their ethnicity. It's like, you know what, but it isn't a big thing.
Nobody owns a culture. You're only a part of a culture. So, yeah. I think it's a bunch of hooey. The arguments that things are cultural, or that cultural appropriation is bad, is hooey. That's where I stand.
If somebody walks in and I all of a sudden wants to pretend that I was something that I'm not. But when you put you put the music out there, you put the, because you want us to learn and appreciate. If I start to really appreciate that and want to incorporate that into my life, into my appreciation, then it's good. Is it? It's at some point you got to just stop with all the sensitivity.
Yeah, I think, white people look ridiculous in cornrows, but they should still be able to wear them and not have people complain. Who cares? It's a hairstyle.
Even Bo Derek can pull it off.
Right, and if she can't do it, nobody can do it. Right?
No.
Wasn't that the whole point?
Yep. Music is universal. It all blends in. It becomes a mesh of different things. Appreciate it. Understand that sometimes it's appreciation, not trying to dig into who and what. Sorry, I get crabby.
Speaking of music, do you remember the Nirvana Nevermind album? The iconic cover photo of the little naked baby underwater swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And there's money on a fish hook photoshopped on it. Well, the kid is now an adult. This is from the 90s. It happens. If you don't keep them in a small enough tank, then they just keep growing. So he's now suing Nirvana because he's claiming that, first of all, this kid's he has a tattoo. He has a tattoo that says Nevermind across his chest. He's been cashing in on this
forever.
For 20 some years or whatever. And now he decides he has to sue them because he's claiming that the parents didn't sign a release, which sounds pretty unlikely. But even so, if they didn't, then I'm not really a lawyer, not much of a lawyer, but
I played one on TV. Or I worked on a show with attorneys. Yeah. So
I played a juror on TV, which is plenty close to being a lawyer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same department.
See, that's good.
But I don't think he's got a case. I think obviously he's trying to get publicity, and it worked, But yeah,
what does he want?
Oh, he probably just wants him to settle. He's not only suing the band, but it's one of those wide net things where he's suing, Geffen Records. He's suing the band. He's suing the manager of the band. It's like if you got 6 or 7 different lawsuits, then you're hoping that each one of them settles, and cha-ching. So that's probably what he's settling, hoping.
He thinks he deserves money for being their little babers.
If they signed a release, then he's got no case, obviously, because you sign a release, that's a photograph that's going to be used in perpetuity. You don't renegotiate when the kid turns 18. You don't renegotiate the terms of the photo. It's like, that's the photo that's out there. And even though, it is a picture of a naked baby with his little peen out there for the world to see, he's still, there are people who might say, well, he has a right to privacy because he's an adult. But again, it's like the photo was taken when it was taken. He was the model.
From what I know from having done commercials, is you sign
a release. Yeah.
Yes.
And it always says,
okay, I'll take this amount today, or if you show up later on and you use it again, you get your choice. But yes, you signed a contract before they do anything.
Right. And the rights holder holds the rights in perpetuity.
Yeah. They don't shoot, film, anything until something is signed.
Right. I guess we'll see. I'm sure what he's hoping is that they'll just say, oh, you know what? Go away. Here's $150,000. Because, to Geffen Records, that's nothing.
That's a sneeze.
Yeah. It's worth it because the publicity stops,
That's just goofy.